Welcome into the Gaming Discourse. I'm Tyler Frater alongside Richard Day the Cruz.
Hello.
And Chief Engineer, Lieutenant Commander Connor Frater.
Good afternoon.
It is Monday, September 25th, 2023. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse, Patreon.com/The Gaming Discourse. You can support us for $2, $4, $7, and $10. Get your name in the video credits, early access to videos, access to our Discord server, more stuff like that. We'll have a new episode of Gaming Discourse FM, which is Richard's chill
radio
video
show.
Game music radio show, which is very nice.
Thank you.
And I usually post that. If you follow us on Patreon, I always try and post the link. I do a Patreon update every week. I post the link in the Patreon update. I post our podcast there too. So follow us on Patreon, you get those. If not, just go check them out, subscribe, and they'll be in your YouTube feed, hopefully.
Salt that bell icon.
Salt and vinegar, that bell icon, whatever.
Step on it.
So
Spit in its face.
we're gonna discuss this Xbox leak in a little bit. There's just a torrent of stuff. So we'll get there. We'll have a lot of stuff to read, and then there's also been an update on the Unity situation. Until then, I'm assuming we have progressed in our lives with Baldur's Gate 3 and or Starfield and or whatever the hell Richard's playing.
Just
kidding.
Well, that I've gotten a little further in Armored Core 6.
Ooh.
And I have because I took like a week break from it. I came back and it was just like, oh, everything is easy. so it's just that like probably fatigue I had from constantly trying to beat bosses. So it's refreshing again. So I'm dabbling. I pop in and out of Armored Core 6 because I started playing Cyberpunk again because the 2.0 update dropped. And I started a brand new game because the last time I played it, I think I only got about 10 or 15 hours into it before I decided to hold off on playing it. And I started a new game, and I started, the first time around, I chose to be a Corpo. This time around, I chose to be a Nomad.
Nice.
And I felt, when I started the game, two things. One, I felt that the Nomad route was way more organic from a storytelling perspective than the Corpo side was. Because the Corpo side, it's like, in 5 minutes, you're no longer Corpo, and it doesn't matter anymore, you know? And with Nomad, because of where you're at and how you enter into Night City, everything is kind of, it feels right from a storyline perspective.
Because you're sort of arriving at Night City the same way the player does.
Right, yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so it feels nice going through that. I also feel like the relationship with Jackie is a little more organic that way as well. Because when you meet, I can't remember how it is on all the other ones. You probably do, but Jackie's also new at heisting.
If you go with the street one, he sort of grows up with you, I think.
Yeah.
Corpo, when you first meet, he points a gun at you or something. You're like hostile initially, and then you eventually become friends. And I had no idea about Nomad.
So Nomad is kind of, it's funny. It's like if it was an offer up meetup, because you meet up with him and he has something that you both have to deliver to the drop point, and so you both are kind of like, we're both new at this, we're gonna do this thing together.
Nice.
And so it is nice how it introduces you to the game that way. And since I only played about 15 hours of the original version, I can't remember, and it was like 2 years ago now, I think. I can't remember how much of it, like, I remember how it played, how it felt to play. But playing 2.0 on PS5, I felt immediately like I was playing a different game in a good way. But also the adaptive triggers help, which they actually worked on those. Those are not like simple afterthought adaptive triggers. They actually do. I'm going to be a little exaggerating here, but I felt like I was playing Gran Turismo with my cars.
Oh, okay, cool.
Because the brake is hard, the gas is hard, like depending on how you want to go.
Okay.
The gunplay I felt was way better and easier And the new skill tree is, I don't even know what I'm looking at. Because I can't remember it from the first game, but the second game, second game, the 2.0 update.
Might as well be a second game.
It might as well be a second game. And
it's vastly different from, because I remember the first skill tree.
Yeah.
Because I played a lot of the first, and it's vastly different.
Yeah. And so I don't know if it was a combination of all these things that were brand new from what I vaguely remember the first time around, but it's immediately grabbed me. And so I am sitting here with a little more of my thoughts on Cyberpunk instead of other games I'm trying to play, like Armored Core 6 or, others out there. But it is something I can't wait to get more into. And it looks great on PS5. It's like I'm playing an ultra settings PC game.
Running pretty good.
Yeah, running very well. I have had weird things happen, but it's something I fully expect from open world games like this or something Bethesda would make. So yeah, I'm greatly enjoying it, and I've spent already over 10 hours on the game already, and I barely passed the prologue.
Okay,
so
awesome.
I barely got Johnny because that's the interlude, like they call it, the interlude, and so I'm barely there. And I've already I already feel so much, and I've leveled up fairly consistently. So I was playing that, having a good time. And then I also was playing the Separate Ways DLC for Resident Evil 4.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I need to pick that up too.
Because that one popped up, yeah. And it's more Resident Evil 4, which is nothing to scoff at. And it's very cool playing as Ada. She has very cool abilities. But it's also weird from a gameplay and storytelling standpoint, because it is basically what she was doing at the time of what was going on in Resident Evil 4, but they make it they make the situations very fragmented. Leon's story, of course, you start out the village. From the village you got to go to the lake you got to go to the house, Mendez's house, blah blah blah. With Ada, it's just you immediately start out, you're in this place. Okay, you got to that place. Now it's time for this part. Lots of gaps are skipped over for her. So where I'm at as far as the DLC goes, it's kind of like, wow, we're already at this part, like in the game.
Okay.
Whereas like Leon, it wouldn't even be.
Yeah.
I know
it takes a while.
I'm explaining it very terribly, but.
Well, no, that makes sense because it's sort of filling in the gaps.
It's filling in the gaps, but it's not expanding anything.
Not like
it's
bridging them or anything like that.
This gap.
Okay.
But like I said, more Resident Evil 4 is nothing to scoff at. The villain,
so good.
The villain in this one is the second Salazar, short guy. He had the two guys with him. You're fighting the second one. He's constantly after Ada.
Okay.
And he has a hallucination trick up his sleeve. Like he gets Ada at the beginning somehow, and every time you fight him, like a hallucination type of fight, and it's fairly interesting. But yeah, he's the big bad of Ada's section, it seems like. But that is also very good, especially for $10. $10 DLC. But yeah, that's
I had so much fun with that Resident Evil 4 remake.
And
I went back in. So the guy that I just learned this the other day, the voice actor that plays Asterion in Baldur's Gate played Heisenberg in Resident Evil 8. I didn't know that. Hello, Ethan, that guy.
No way, really?
It's the same guy, yeah. And when I go back and listen, I always thought he had a bit of an accent. Like you could tell it was somebody doing an American accent.
Yeah.
I always thought that there's a bit of that. When I went back and listened to it, and there's a few times where you're like, ha ha ha, he like laughs, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's straight up Asterion. I didn't know. But anyway, going back and watching that footage, this doesn't always happen, but it's like, when you go back, you watch footage of a game you've played before, you're like, yeah, it's a fun game. Then every now and then you go back, you watch footage of a game, you're like, damn, that was a good game. That was Resident Evil 8
yes,
for me.
Yeah.
I went back and I watched some footage of Heisenberg, and I was like,
he's my favorite character.
Damn, that was cool. Good. Yeah, a little long, but still very good and a whole lot of fun, and just like how ridiculous. He even gets his hand ripped off and, oh, let me just pour some health juice on this. Perfect. Just pops his hand right back on. Perfection. Yeah, that game was so much fun. And did they do an update that was
There's a VR
enabled
update.
third person mode?
Yes,
too?
yes, yeah. That was with the introduction of the story DLC, which I never got to that actually.
That's awesome because I think Resident Evil needs to be third person. I just think it's better in third person when you can, because they're so good at creating like those giant set pieces and the castles and the zany settings and stuff like that. And I'm not saying one is better than the other, but like it feels so limiting in first person when you want to take all that in. So when it's third person and you have Leon walking up to the town and you can see the entire town, it's like, it's a little more grand, I guess, in that sense. Okay, anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Connor?
Working through Baldur's Gate.
Baldur's Gate?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is. I keep calling it a good game because there's really no other way to describe it besides game of the year.
We don't want bomb threats. It's game of the year besides Tears of the Kingdom, of course.
It's game of the year.
If you're a Nintendo fan, don't listen. You're not going to exist anymore
Tears of
anyway
the
because
Kingdom
Xbox is going to buy you.
It's interesting. I've seen a couple people online on like Twitter and Reddit that like when they talk about like game of the year, like the way they respond is just like, well, I thought it was going to be, Tears of the Kingdom, but it's fucking Baldur's Gate 3. Like that's how it like feels. Like their responses are just like, it's going to be Baldur's Gate 3. So
they just resigned to the fact.
Yeah, no, it's wild.
I did see something that it was like, it was about remakes. Somebody posted somewhere on Reddit that a remake shouldn't be in a
Game of the Year contention.
Which I'm so over Game of the Year awards and stuff like that. But it's like, I thought for sure the thing you were going to see was, if it's in early access, it can't be Game of the Year because that's like the last ditch attempt to save it for Tears of the Kingdom. I haven't seen that online though. I'm sure it's out there. But anyway, I'm sorry, Connor.
No. The Underdark is very fun.
Yes, it is.
The boss fight for the Adamantine Forge took me a while to realize how to do it.
That one made me extremely angry. But I had a lot of fun with it. Yeah. Yeah, because there's like, it's not like other bosses. There's a trick to it.
Yeah.
And that's also a benefit of examining your enemies. Because if you don't examine some of these enemies, you're going to miss things like, I don't know, an enemy that's resistant to every single type of damage. So it's like, gotta make sure you check that every now and then to make sure you're not throwing fireballs at something that just laughs at them.
I'd saved just before I activated the forge and the boss came out. And I hadn't examined him, and I just loaded up a smite on my paladin. I did Vow of Enmity, so I had advantage. I activated the Illithid power so that it was a crit. 7 damage. I'm like, oh shit, what is going on?
Yeah.
When normally I'm hitting guys and it's like 40, 50, hit this guy 7. I'm like, oh fuck.
Yeah, that's tough. Well, I'm glad you figured out. We won't spoil how to do it, but it's kind of obvious.
Yeah.
Once you figure it out, you're like, oh, okay. But it is one of those things that's a little annoying because you have to get the boss in a specific place for it to work. Yeah. So it's like you have to like micromanage it's kind of fun, but I just wish it were a little easier to just stop where you are. Okay. No, don't run toward it. No, you're running past it, son of a bitch.
I had my character stand there.
Okay, well,
I sacrificed my character. I had the scrolls were revivified, so I just brought him back.
If you're willing to do that, then I guess I wasn't willing to annihilate my party in service.
Oh no, not my party, just my character.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
Alrighty, I can respect that, I guess.
Sacrificing the Vengeance Paladin. I'm like, no, this guy's going down with me.
Okay. And how else are your adventures going?
I'm most of the way to Act 2. I'm going through the Mountain Pass area, and I'm about to commit various war crimes towards the Githyanki.
Yeah, the Githyanki. So, I appreciate it's a good story. Don't get me wrong. I appreciate this kind of writing, but it's like everybody you meet in the game has some kind of problem, and you're just like, oh my god, you're all complaining about all these fucking problems. All I want to do is save the world, but it's like, my god, oh my. They're all crying and moaning and bitching about each other's gods and their cultures and their civilizations, and I'm just like, you know what? Fine. you want to have it this way, you want to have it that way, I'll just let the octopus people take us all over. How does that sound? But anyway, the Githyanki are one of those tribes, one of those groups of people that is just like, they've got all these things that they're complaining about.
What are the things that you don't like that they complain about?
I mean, no, it's good. It's good writing. It's interesting. It's interesting, especially once you learn about their god and their
undead lich goddess.
Yeah, Vlaakith and what's going on.
Who is like extremely abusive towards them and indoctrinates them into her own personality cult, which is also like a death warrior cult. Yeah.
Yeah. For a while, I called them watered down Klingons, or Klingons without flavor, because that's what they were. I got really bitter at one point, as you could tell. Anyway, so you're gonna
don't worry. The Githzerai are a lot better.
Okay.
So like there was a split in Gith culture with the Githyanki and the Githzerai after they broke free from slavery underneath the Illithids.
Mm-hmm.
The Githyanki are like super hyper militaristic. The Githzerai are like super aesthetic. Everything is just beautiful with them.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is why they're not fighting anyone anywhere, because they're just off doing their thing, off living life.
Gotcha.
Being beautiful.
Being monks.
So
being
you think you're going to go
monks.
through the Githyanki Kresh and do some bad stuff then?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't, because I'm annoying and I always have to play good characters. I just get abused all the time.
Well, again, I'm playing an Oath of Vengeance Paladins, and they slighted me.
Well, so explain what an Oath of Vengeance Paladin is. Is that a good, bad? How does that work?
Well, it's depending on the paladin.
Oh, okay.
Oath of Vengeance is something happened and you vowed to avenge it. And now you're on a pseudo-holy path towards achieving that goal. You can use your oath to do good or evil. I mean, either way, vengeance can go either way. But they slighted me and tried to murder me, so I'm taking them out.
Okay.
Naturally.
Yeah. Eye for an eye.
Is
or
that
my eye for your entire camp.
Is that an actual paladin subclass in the game? Or
yes.
You just okay, so it's an actual like thing that gives you specific abilities and whatnot. Yeah. Okay, interesting.
Because in Baldur's Gate 3, there's the Oath of Ancients, Oath of Devotion, and the Oath of Vengeance. Or if you break your oath, you can be an Oathbreaker Paladin, which then you get like evil powers.
Interesting. Okay. I think Paladin's definitely the one that I'm going to have on my second playthrough. That's probably the thing with Baldur's Gate 3 that I'm surprised by is I am 180 hours into it right now. I'm still doing side stuff in Act 3. And I'm already thinking about like what I want to do in a second playthrough.
I saw a post today on Reddit about they're starting their second playthrough, and they made their Guardian their first playthrough character.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. That's neat. Yeah. There's so much stuff that I missed and so much stuff that I did wrong and stuff that they have now fixed that it's like, if I went back, a lot of stuff would obviously be the same, but there'd be a substantial amount of stuff that would be different or I would do differently.
The origin characters have very interesting stories if you play as them.
I've heard that. Yeah. But that's something I don't think I would want to do personally, just because because if you play as an origin character, they don't have a voice or anything. They're just
correct. Yeah.
They're just a silent.
It's just the narration that you get for your normal.
Which is cool. It's fine if you do it, but I'd prefer that because all the voice actors are just so great. All the actors are just so great. So I kind of want that personality.
But then the one origin character that you don't get to have join your party, the Dark Urge, also a very fun play.
Yeah, that's where you have to fight off urges to do like evil things.
Yeah, so you can either lay into it and become a super mega bastard, or you can have a redemption arc in your story, and
that's cool. I may go Dark Urge Paladin, something like that. Redeem myself. Maybe there's a scene late in the game where I sit down next to a nun. All of a sudden, I'm Roger Clark. I don't know. I've done a lot of bad things in my life. Kill people. Something like that. I just want to play Red Dead 2 again. Okay.
Good game. That's all I gotta say.
What was that? Sorry.
That's all I gotta say.
Okay. I think I don't think there was anything. I have not played much.
Sorry.
Since,
one last thing. Did more Starfield. I don't like how some of the characters interact with dialogue options. Minor spoiler, I guess, in the story. When you pick up Samco, you go to his hometown and you get involved with family drama. At the start of that, when you find out there's going to be family drama, there's an option to say, is this family drama? And Samco gets mad at you for not wanting to be involved in family drama. It's like, what?
Oh, it kind of feels arbitrary.
Yeah.
I can see that. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, it's Sarah. Sarah's another companion that either likes or dislikes the things you do. But it seems pretty obvious that she's sort of just a straight shooter, like, good person, you know? So it's kind of easy to pick the dialogue options that please her. I have not traveled with Sam very much, or the other couple. You can travel with a lot of companions, but there's only, as far as I know, there's only like a handful of companions that you can romance or that have a ton of dialogue options and stuff like that. Yeah. So I have not traveled with them. I've been going around with Sarah mostly, but yeah, I haven't gotten that much farther in Starfield. I'm enjoying it, but I just kind of have to be in the mood for it, I guess. And it is it does pair nice with Baldur's Gate 3, because Baldur's Gate 3 is just so, it's like everything you do, it's like, oh, you want to open the store? Well, first consider, if you open the store, will you offend a culture? Will you summon a demon? It's like, I don't know, dude. And then in Starfield, it's like, there's pirates over here, and they stole this guy's meteor, and you need to go shoot him in the face. And it's like, all right, sounds good. And then you lift off, and it's like, my ship's broken. Do you have any tools? And you're like, yeah, sure. Thanks. And it's like real simple morality. You don't gotta worry about anything. Baldur's Gate 3, it's like, there's no right answers. Fuck you. It's like, I don't know what to do.
There's no right answers. Fuck you. And everyone's horny.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, well, let's hit the end.
Hold on, real quick.
Do not hit the end.
I've seen the space spiders. Fuck those.
Yeah, those are terrifying. They're really creepy.
Yeah, I don't like them. And then, did you see the Borg cube somebody made?
I have not.
Somebody made a Borg cube as their spaceship.
That is awesome.
It's terrible.
I saw someone who took that idea and hollowed out the cube. So it's just the lines for a cube. Because ships target the center of mass, so they're shooting through the ship.
Oh, hell yeah, dude. That's awesome.
That's cool.
Anyways,
cool.
Those are just two things I wanted to say.
I do like that in all of sci-fi, there's all these crazy looking ships, and in reality, the ship that people would probably make is just a Borg cube, because it's the one that kind of makes the most sense, I think. Yeah. Like, why would you put the engines way over here? Why not just self-contain everything? Anyway, I don't know. Maybe one day we'll have the Enterprise. I would like that. Maybe. Hit the ad. Thanks for listening. If you like our content, please consider subscribing or leaving a like and comment. You can find us at patreon.com/thegamingdiscourse. And our tiers are $2, $4, $7, and $10 and include getting your name in the video credits, early access, and access to our Discord server. I just threw like inventory packs on because I was tired of being over-encumbered anyway. Okay, let's get into this Xbox leak. There's a ton of stuff here. Get ready to hear that a couple more times. Ton of stuff. We're not going to get to everything. The leak is documents, emails, other things that are a part of the FTC's continuing lawsuit against the Microsoft Activision Blizzard merger, and were discovered by a user on Reset Era, which is a famous video game forum. It seems like Microsoft accidentally included these documents in a packet of documentation that was supposed to be public, but they, I guess, mistakenly added it. So all this stuff that wasn't supposed to be public was made public after the news trickled out. Phil Spencer, who was the head of Xbox, said on Twitter that much of this info is old. So who knows what we're about to talk about is still in Xbox's plans is still in there, or whatever, or if they've changed things, whatever. So A few highlights from which, again, there is a ton, so we're not getting to this isn't even half of the stuff that came out. A few of the highlights: the Xbox Series X and S will have a mid-gen console refresh next year. This is, again, according to the documentation. I don't think Microsoft has confirmed this. The next Series X, which is codenamed Brooklyn, will go digital only and is redesigned into a cylinder. It will also have 2 terabytes of storage. Emails listed estimations of how much money certain games may cost to be brought to Game Pass day and date. These prices ranged from $5 million for Baldur's Gate 3 up to $300 million for Star Wars Jedi Survivor. A little bit more context there. It was emails, again, estimations, ideas of how much it might cost. Again, we don't know how much it actually costs for some of these games. At one point, Microsoft's board was fully supportive of the idea of a Nintendo/Valve acquisition, with Spencer saying that it would be a career deal and that it's just taking time for Nintendo to realize that their future exists off their own hardware, which is interesting. A Bethesda roadmap was also leaked that includes a Tokyo Ghostwire sequel, which I think is a cool idea. Yeah. Dishonored 3, which I think is a cool idea.
Should have been done already.
Yeah.
Fallout 3 and Oblivion remasters.
Should have been done already.
Which is a cool idea. So a lot of stuff among other games. So there's a lot of stuff there that sounds like it's something everybody likes. Okay, so and then there's this email that I'm going to read. This is long. But I was saying before the show, it's a meat sandwich of just stuff. It's 27 grams. It's at least 27 grams
47.
of 47 grams. I'm not on TikTok. Of straight gaming protein that I'm about to read. So strap in. Put seatbelts on your ears, Roy, because I'm about to take you on the ride of your life. Okay. In March 2020, ahead of a feedback meeting with Take-Two, Spencer said this in a memo, and the memo was directed to, I believe, among other people, Microsoft's CEO, which his name is escaping me right now. Anyway, okay, quote. Again, it's a little long, so bear with me. Quote, over the past 5 to 7 years, AAA publishers have tried to use production scale as their new moat. Very few companies can afford to spend the $200 million in Activision or Take-Two spend to put a title like Call of Duty or Red Dead Redemption on the shelf. These AAA publishers have, mostly, used this production scale to keep their top franchises and the top-selling games each year. The issue these publishers have run into is the same production cost scale approach hurts their ability to create new intellectual property. The hurdle rate on new IP at these high production levels have led to risk aversion by big publishers on new IP. You've seen a rise of AAA publishing using rented IP to try and offset the risk. Star Wars with EA, Spider-Man with Sony, etc. Specifically, the AAA game publishers starting from a position of strength, driven from physical retail, have failed to create any real platform effect for themselves. They effectively continue to build their scale through aggregated per-game profit and losses, hoping to maximize each new release of their existing IP. In the new world, where a AAA publisher don't have real distribution leverage with consumers, they don't have production efficiencies, and their new IP hit rate is not disproportionately higher than the industry average, we see that the top franchises today were mostly not created by AAA game publishers. Games like Fortnite, Roblox, Minecraft, Candy Crush, Clash Royale, Dota 2, etc. were all created by independent studios with full access to distribution. Overall, this, in my opinion, is a good thing for the industry, but does put AAA publishers in a precarious spot moving forward. AAA publishers are milking their top franchises, but struggling to refill their portfolio of hit franchises. Most AAA publishers are writing the success of franchises created 10 plus years ago, end quote. A bunch of stuff there that's really interesting. That was back in 2020, I think. Some of it rings true, some of it I'm like, a little iffy about. But let's get into just the leak in general, the stuff we saw, what we liked, what we disliked. There's a lot to talk about.
It was kind of like as the news kept filtering throughout the night, it was your eyes kept focusing on different things because every single release of information was kind of either more interesting than the last, or we're all fighting for the attention. And we all know that there's always, at least since the 360 PS3 era, there's always technically a refresh of consoles. There's the S models, the slim models, super slims, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So we probably all assumed that some sort of refresh was going to happen. I was unsure if they were even going to do anything processing wise or graphics wise. I don't think they need to, but it more or less is just smaller additions, which is fine, and there is a market for it, but I don't know if it will overtake anything specifically, including the something we didn't note here, but the Series S console has a 74%. I think it was like 74% higher purchase rate than the Xbox Series console.
Yeah. Yes, you're correct.
For good reason. It is a $300 system.
Yes.
Very good value, digital only for those who, are interested in it. And apparently it's working, seemingly, according to these leaks. So that's interesting. I do think that a good amount of this information probably is outdated if it's all from 2020. Because that was right at the beginning of COVID, and things have dramatically changed in the 2 years that happened up until 2023. So some stuff they probably have kept, and some stuff they're probably moving on with. But I think that that whole quote that Spencer was talking about, he's largely spot on.
Yes,
and I hope that he takes those words and puts them to good use when running Microsoft, because they definitely need more games on their repertoire. And they're doing a good job with Starfield. We're going to call the start of it Starfield. Like, Starfield's the start.
Is like the de facto beginning.
They didn't. The game was released.
It's a false start. False start with Redfall.
Yes,
that was a false start.
5-yard penalty.
No, that was a tech demo.
Repeat second down.
They called Mulligan.
So I think maybe my main takeaway from all this is whatever Xbox's plans are, whatever they're doing, the main thing is you need games.
Yes,
you need games. That is my opinion. I think there are people that probably don't necessarily agree with that. I think Phil Spencer probably only half agrees with me, because he may say, Tyler, do we need a bunch of games, or do we just need Minecraft? Because we lost, that was his quote a couple months ago, was we lost that generation where you have these big tentpole games that went from the end of the 360 era to the Xbox One, PS4 era, into the PS5, Xbox Series XS era. And they lost that. So people that were playing Minecraft on the PS4 are migrating to Minecraft on the PS5, right? Mm-hmm. Or people that played Minecraft on the Switch are still going to play it on the Switch, and they're likely going to play it on whatever the next Nintendo console is. And Xbox lost out on that. So I think in his mind, first party IP like Starfield is obviously a massive thing, but I think it's probably part of the solution. And part of the solution is getting people into the ecosystem so that they can start playing those tentpole games in the Xbox ecosystem. But I still think that you need, to attract people to that ecosystem, to attract, I guess, a more quote-unquote hardcore audience to your ecosystem, you're going to need some kind of bigger first party, not even first party, well, I guess first party, whatever, just some kind of bigger games that you can only play on Xbox or on PC, right? Starfield is the first thing, right? They purchased Bethesda. You're going to get Elder Scrolls 6, but that's not, or 7, or whichever one. Skyrim 2, that's not going to come out until like 2045, so that's way ahead.
Yeah.
But until then, you have other Bethesda releases that should bolster that. They're going to win the Activision Blizzard thing, so what do you see there? Mm-hmm. So they're like the Yankees. They're at least buying people to make them a championship console, So will that be a good solution? I don't know. I still think Xbox has powerful IPs in Gears and in Halo. They just haven't, with Halo, they haven't known what to do with it since 343 took over. Yeah. It's just been a big lost era. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that means it's impossible. There was a lot of good in Halo Infinite, and I think they just need to focus on that. And you could have something where it's legitimately like a console seller type thing next time. I don't know. That's purely my opinion. What did we think of the Nintendo thing? Because I thought that was completely out of left field.
I think it was out of left field, but also laughable.
Yeah,
because we do know that they already tried to do this back in the 2000s, in the early 2000s. They tried that. Yeah, they tried to buy Nintendo as well, and they were laughed out of the room. Is what the quote says. And even then, back in the early 2000s, when they made Xbox and they wanted to buy Nintendo, Nintendo was in a very rough spot. They weren't close to like bankruptcy or anything, but considering the failures of the GameCube at the time, if they were panicked enough, it probably would have been a good buy for them. But I also think that there is a drastically different cultural mentality for being bought out, especially from an American company. And I don't think that Nintendo would even entertain the idea of being bought by anyone. I don't think it matters. And the same goes for... to a lesser extent, Valve.
Oh yeah, that one. Oh well,
I don't think Microsoft could have pulled off either. Like even Valve, I don't think it was an actual possibility.
I agree with you. I don't think it was a possibility. I also don't think that I think Gabe has the same type of mindset. He doesn't seem like somebody who wants to be bought out or would like falter for that.
Yeah, Valve is the one that I have trouble pinning because Nintendo, you have the whole Japan is a different business environment. They're super protective of their IPs.
Yes.
With this new Mario movie, it was like it's like how long it took to finally get this in place to make a new movie and everything, and how much they pushed it, and just the way that they do like just the general vibe, and we all know Nintendo is just super protective of its IPs, super protective of big releases and stuff like that. Everything they did in the lead up to Tears of the Kingdom, cracking down on modding and whatnot.
Yeah.
To think that they would sell out and sell to like, and when I say American company, I don't mean to say that they like look down upon Americans, but just a company from a different culture that values IP different ways and stuff like that. It just seemed like, really? Because I just don't think that would be possible.
No.
Maybe Phil Spencer knows something that I don't. I don't know. He probably does.
Even with all of that, with him saying that the future exists off their own hardware.
And I'm not sure what he meant by that.
I don't know. But the Switch is the third best-selling console of all time.
Yeah.
Nintendo holds 2 of the top 3 spots.
Yeah, and the Switch 2, I think, is going to be just... Because the Switch 2 is going to be an updated version of the Switch, and it's probably going to be right around the same price range.
Yeah.
Which means I would assume it's going to be... it'll be interesting, because people won't hop to it as quickly as they'll hop to the Switch. Unless
it does something drastically different.
So, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. You tell people that this thing can run
I was about to say,
Breath of the Wild at 60 frames a second.
We say that, but how many different versions of the Game Boy sold?
Yeah, yes, you're right.
This is true.
You are absolutely correct.
You know what? I'm not going to spec because Nintendo's in their own universe, so I'm not going to speculate what Nintendo can and can't do.
So just to circle back to that quote, what their future is off their hardware. No. Nintendo has a cult-like following.
But also Nintendo's game has never been making super powerful, hardware, right?
Yeah.
It's never that their game, and you can correct me on this because I don't know about like the N64 era.
Yeah.
But since like the GameCube, their consoles have always been of the big 3 the least powerful.
Even before then, yeah. Even before then.
But they've made up with it because we have Mario and Zelda and fucking Mario Kart.
Yeah, with and this goes directly into what he said in that big quote, is Nintendo has their big tentpole IPs that they keep pushing out that are always successful. So they don't need to necessarily push too hard on the tech side for their consoles, as long as their consoles are able to support what their games, their IPs are going to do, then they're just going to rake in the money each time they put out a console, each time they put out a game.
And as far as we know, the only reason for the increasing in budgets is because Aloy needs hair on her face.
Yeah.
So you got these ridiculous budget costs that are just inflating. And I'm sure it's expensive for Nintendo to make games, but I'm assuming that the budget for Tears of the Kingdom was nowhere near like $500 million or something like that. Yeah. You look like you had a thought for a split second.
I did slightly, and I've lost track of it, and I'm sorry.
Okay.
Because we were talking about Nintendo being bought by. Oh, right. Yes. So that's the argument that Spencer makes in his statement, where he talks about Nintendo having to exist off of their own hardware is an argument that fanboys have used for the longest time since GameCube and Wii, and it's the same question every time. It's like, why doesn't Nintendo just go third party and just make their games exclusively for other consoles? And I thought that was always a terrible question to ask, because Nintendo is now in the zeitgeist of Apple and Disney, to where it's no, you buy a product to have that name recognition for that thing. And so I always tell people at work, Nintendo is the Apple of the video game world, because it's their games never go down in value. They may, it's not tech, it's not the top of the tech, but it's something that everybody wants. It's something that everybody knows. And it's something that always keeps its value. So I don't know why that idea keeps coming up, because it's never going to happen. Yeah. Never going to happen. And there was a whole time during the early mid 2000s where everybody was like, why doesn't Nintendo just make a cell phone game? And they have, and they've closed most of them. Yep, because it doesn't matter. The only one is Fire Emblem Heroes, and you can thank the waifus for that.
The Valve thing is interesting, because Valve is notoriously like a cat. You never really know what their intentions are. You never know what mood they're in. And also, from what we know about their work culture, it's very fluid. It's very open-ended. They have roll-around desks. Gabe Newell's a big libertarian, so it's like, who knows what the hell goes on there? But at the end of the day, I think Valve has been a positive on PC gaming.
I'll say
absolutely
positive, yeah.
Yeah, well, but there's definitely stuff that Valve does that I dislike a lot, with loot boxes and like CS:GO skins and stuff in the past, and quality control and whatnot. But I think for the most part, it's been a positive. The amount of money it would take, though, because first of all, that idea is terrifying to me, because that would mean Microsoft would go from I don't know, are they third or fourth place when it comes to, they make the computers, but they don't really do much else when it comes to gaming.
Right.
I'm being a little facetious there. But Valve has been the king of the hill since PC gaming became like a real thing, like around the 2000 or whatever. No, it's obviously, you had PC gaming before then.
You're right. You're right.
You had Doom and Quake and stuff, but
more mainstream.
But once you had Half-Life, 2000, you had Half-Life, and then Medal of Honor Battlefield, and I think that's when things really kicked into high gear with PC gaming.
2004 when
and then Half-Life 2, yeah. So they've been dominant, and so the amount of money you would have to spend, I imagine, I don't know, because Valve's probably, I have no idea what Valve would be valued at, because that's PC gaming you're buying, let alone the IP, let alone whatever else. It would be so much money. But would Valve ever do it? That's something that I don't know. That's something I don't have the same conviction with Nintendo, because we know the culture Nintendo comes from. But Valve is like this weird sort of anomaly that I can't get a finger on the pulse of. What do we think about? So the next, I didn't put this in the notes, but the next Xbox console is supposedly, from the notes, is they have an idea of it being like some weird cloud hybrid thing.
Sub $100, right?
Yeah, it was $99 was one of the ideas that they floated. Conceptually, and that was supposed to be slated 2028 was their idea. Now again, 2 years ago, who knows what the fact is now. But what do we think of that?
Well, I think their view of cloud has shifted, given what they've said recently in FCC rulings.
You would think.
So I think that when this was being talked about in 2020 internally at Microsoft, they were thinking that cloud gaming was going to be something bigger. And then Stadia itself. And they're like, oh, maybe this isn't, maybe we'll shift this around and change how we approach this. And now they're at their current view of cloud gaming, to where it's really not cloud gaming. It's an offshoot of what players are using just for bypasses.
I do wonder if this is one of the reasons that the UK's CMA was so fidgety about cloud gaming. I wonder if the UK, I don't know how any of this worked. I don't know if the same documents were provided to the UK that was provided to the FTC. But imagine if you're one of the dudes on the UK's panel and you're reading, oh, they're going to own cloud gaming and their next console is going to be a cloud hybrid.
Yeah.
Maybe that's part of the reason that they were so fidgety. I don't know. And then maybe it is like the reason Xbox down. And now what, Ubisoft is going to have the rights to. I forget how that works now. I think Ubisoft is going to have the cloud streaming rights to like Activision games or something
in
like
Europe,
that.
right? I think
There's some kind of deal that's been worked out. But yes, Microsoft has seemed to pull back on that idea, and they've said, that people view xCloud as like this other thing rather than a primary way to experience the ecosystem.
right.
So yeah, the idea itself, though, I'm not huge on, just because.
Well, no.
And the other thing that I'm not super stoked for is just Xbox getting rid of physical altogether.
Yes.
Because if everything that was in the documents is true, that means the next gen refresh, which takes over the current console, because they're not going to be selling 4 consoles at once. Well, they will, but after a while it'll take over.
Yeah.
That means that after a while you're going to have a current gen console that does not have a disk drive at all, no option. Maybe external, but I don't know. That makes me a little scared, because it's the death of physical editions and stuff like that. And it makes me scared just because I don't like the idea of like games that you own getting further and further away from your control. I still think there's utility to it. It's not as convenient, but I'm fine with that inconvenience. You're someone that operates a game store.
Yes.
It's not like a general store. What would you call it?
Oh, what, for the cloud or just my store?
Your store.
I guess
Like a
I guess it's
collector's-
specialty now. So I mean,
Yeah.
retro gaming.
But from like your perspective, what would you think about? What are your thoughts on that? If this is to be true and Xbox just gets rid of physical games altogether?
I think there's a lot of angles, a lot more than we're going to be talking about, but we've discussed some of the work that goes down, particularly with like limited run games and super rare games in Europe and other places that get the licenses to make physical games. Another place that showed up was VGP over in Canada, which they make physical games of games that are no longer in print anymore. So I think that we will still have a lot of physical stuff, and I don't think we should worry about physical going away anytime soon, but I think physical will drastically reduce. But it won't go away. And eventually, in, let's say, a long time, 15, 20 years' time, I will be dead by then, but 15, 20 years' time, the cycle comes back.
Mm-hmm.
And physical will come back because it becomes cool again. Because cassettes have become cool again.
Yeah.
Vinyl has become cool again. CDs,
Vinyl is always cool.
Vinyl is yes.
Vinyl was sold always throughout all of time. Since vinyl started coming out, there's always been infographic about it. There has always been close to $500 million in vinyl sales, just in the United States alone.
Yeah.
Since its inception to like 6 months ago.
Yeah, it's still phenomenal. So it's another quote unquote attack on the physical market, but I think that they're kind of delving into the needs of younger audiences when they want to play something now, and cloud kind of provides that. Considering you don't have to wait for like the server to free up. You don't have to install a game anymore. You don't have to wait for it. You don't have to wait for a patch. You just start it up. It's good to go. And so I think that they may lean into that as a selling point eventually, which some people would argue, like, I will sacrifice the graphical prowess of Witcher 3 to play it portable. I will sacrifice not having a disc, not having a console at home to play it a
Streamed
minute
or
or two
whatever.
faster. You know.
Yeah. Oh, sure.
Because that, you know, look with cell phones, like how big cell phones. Give me a smaller cell phone. We went to smaller cell phone. No, give me a bigger cell. Now we're back to bigger cell phones again. Like it's just things are cyclical. They go out, they come back in. So
Yeah. Let's a little bit more here. Let's dig into this. Dig into this quote: "The meat sandwich, 47 grams of protein." So the first thing is he said, and whatever you guys see, you can jump in. But a few things. He says the hurdle rate on new IP at these high production levels have led to risk aversion by big publishers on new IP. I think that's interesting because one of the conversations that I'm always curious about is what determines that high investment rate, those new hurdles on new IP. Because I think as soon as Bethesda announced Starfield, people got excited. Mm-hmm. People love new IP. The thing about video games is people will glue their eyes and watch advertisements for games. They can't wait. People love watching the Game Awards more because you get to see exclusive, world exclusive. And then Jeff Keighley's like,
exclusive.
Yeah, Jeff Keighley's like, the best action game with the shotgun is Shooter Man 5 anyway, exclusive. And it goes straight back to like 6 more trailers. That's what people show up
Shooter Man
for.
4.
Exactly.
They were both released 2 weeks apart.
So it's like, so the point I'm trying to make here is there's a massive desire and want for new IPs, and new IPs have been successful. Mm-hmm. PlayStation has had a decade where all they did was make new IPs, and they've been super successful.
Yeah, they've had what, 3 or 4 new IPs in the last like 6 years.
Horizon. There's one other in there I'm sure of, but I don't.
Spider-Man. No, I'm kidding.
Well, but before that,
Kena Bridge of Spirits. No, that went to PC. Whatever.
Yeah,
doesn't matter.
But there was at one point superhero games were like, oh, those are the tie-in bullshit.
Yeah, it's
games.
a tie. Yeah.
You had it like at the beginning of the 2000s. You had some good superhero games, and then you had the bullshit tie-in games.
Yeah.
Then you had Batman Arkham, much like how Christopher Nolan's Batman movies sort of started the superhero phase.
Yeah.
You had the Arkham games, and then after that, you went into Spider-Man. And Spider-Man was the next, like, as far as I know, was like the next big successful, like, AAA superhero IP. So it was based on a recognizable IP, but I still think you give them credit because it was done well. Because it could have easily been done horribly. Like, you know, Superman for the 64 or whatever. So anyway, back to the point. There is a desire for IP, and there's this idea that new intellectual property is expensive, which it is, first time out. But why is it expensive? That's a question that I am always curious about. Because some of those costs are unavoidable, sure. Marketing is going to be different because you have to tell everybody about the new world and stuff like that. But it's like, I think that AAA companies overestimate how visually spectacular their games need to be, or how big their games need to be, and stuff like that. Yeah. So that adds to that hurdle of a new IP, because if you're Strauss Zelnick or whomever, you think that you have to spend $600 million on a new IP when half of that is imagined, because you think that you've created this self-fulfilling prophecy where the only games that sell are games that cost $500 million to make, and you have to make $501 million. But I don't necessarily think that's true. So that's one thing about that I think is interesting. Another thing to point out here, he says, you've seen the rise in AAA publishers using rented IP to try to offset the risk. Star Wars with EA. That's a little awkward, because for a while, EA did shit all with Star Wars.
But those games sold.
Made me so angry.
It makes you angry, but he's right.
It could have sold more.
It could have sold more.
Could have sold way more. But anyway, okay. And then there was right here, this part. So when he lists these games, in the new world where AAA publishers don't have real distribution leverage with consumers, they don't have production efficiencies, and their new IP hit rate is not disproportionately higher than the industry average, we see that the top franchises today were mostly not created by AAA game publishers. Games like Fortnite, Roblox, Minecraft, Candy Crush, Clash Royale, Dota 2. Okay, this may be a little bit nitpicky here, but I think those are sort of, I don't know. I don't think those are good examples of like games that are those are games that are successful, but they're all successful because of in certain contexts, right? Clash Royale and Candy Crush are successful because people have 15 minutes and they want to do something on their phone. So it's like, okay, those are successful. And they're not successful because they're good. There are a million games that could be as successful as Candy Crush. They're just not. And the only reason is a coin flip. That's really all it is. It has nothing to do with Candy Crush itself or Clash of Clans itself. It's who had the higher marketing budget, who shows up first on fucking the iTunes store or whatever. It has nothing to do with the quality of the games itself. Dota 2 is made by Valve. So you have someone in industry who has tons of security. They can make a game and it can suck or it can be great and they'll be absolutely fine. Fortnite at one point was an afterthought, and you had PUBG, and they just copied PUBG, and that's what made them super successful. And unlike PUBG, which at the time was made by a smaller developer, Fortnite was made by Epic, which means
they got it out faster.
You had access to your storefront. You had access to a mobile market, which PUBG did not at the time.
Yeah.
They do now, but that's because PUBG has since been sold to...
PUBG is huge in China.
Yeah, it's been sold to a couple different companies. But when PUBG started, it was Brendan Green, and it was based off a mod in Arma, right? So it was not like this huge production. Point being is that these companies have like huge financial origins or reasons that their games are successful that have nothing to do with the games being good or anything like that. And I don't know if their successes, and I'm not saying he's necessarily saying we have to do these things. I think he's just pointing out how success is different across the industry in different ways. But I think it's just worth analyzing why that success exists and deciding whether or not it's worthwhile to replicate it. Because in some instances, I don't think it is. But that's my opinion. The only one in here that I think is maybe Roblox. But Minecraft is the only one where it was like, it was created by a guy and it got huge. And it was huge before it was bought up by Microsoft. Right? And then once it was purchased by Microsoft, it's really big now. So yeah. Anyway, do we have anything else we want to say about the leaks? Anything?
Going back to the like, why does it cost so much to make a game, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think that the publishers, EA, Ubisoft, are a little too hard on like the realistic aspect of video games, and wanting to include realism in your game, because people do have that notion of like, oh, I could pick this thing up, cool, I can do like all the things I can do in real life. But I think that mostly applies to the games that lend itself to it. Starfield, Bethesda games, you know, and stuff like that. And to a lesser extent, like Baldur's Gate 3, you can mess with everything and it's cool. But there are other things that I think people don't think about when you try to make a game. And I think that people kind of overlook, or at least don't get the input art directors. What I mean by that is that I think that an art director is insanely important for the look of your game and by extension, the success of it as well. I was watching a video the other day on Genshin Impact, surprise, surprise. But everybody who was seeing it was like, look at how gorgeous this game is. Genshin Impact is a beautiful game, but it's not as like, if you put it like next to Cyberpunk or, you know, Spider-Man 2 even, or something recent, I'm going to be like, fucking great. Yeah, that's awesome. But we have Nintendo games knock it out of the park all the time because of their art direction and not necessarily
the fidelity
and how much time and money goes into wanting to make sure that your horse's testicles grow and shrink during the winter and summer. Like who cares? Because large majority of people, hell, you know, being facetious, 95% of them won't care. Wasting that time, you're wasting those resources. They just don't get it. And I think that there is something to be said about we love quality over quantity, but I think there are instances where quantity can be just as important regarding games being developed. And so we've had in the last year and a half, 2 years, 3 years even, way too many indie games that have seen success. Just recently, Cult of the Lamb, we got Death's Door, Tunic, all of these games that have had massive success, and they all have really unique and very cool art styles to them. Don't Starve is another one.
Yep.
Valheim has a really crazy art style and is one of the most biggest games last year. So I think that for them to save money, they should probably look at art directors a little more.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, I 100% agree. I think one good example of that is Arcane's games, right? Like,
Dishonored, and
Deathloop does not, like, you look at a character model in Deathloop, it's clearly stylized, right? You have different architectural inspirations, you have like that 60s James Bond camp vibe thing going on.
And characters they're not defined, they're like sharp, like they're
yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah, they're stylized and that
polygonal kind of almost.
That lends it sort of a differentiation and a uniqueness. And I think a lot of people are perfectly fine with that. It doesn't need to be as realistic as possible. That does not mean that a game like Ghost of Tsushima shouldn't exist.
Absolutely.
But if I have to choose between Ghost of Tsushima or the economics of the industry becoming less crazy, choose the economics of the industry becoming less crazy.
Yeah.
God of War Ragnarok, I did not think looked all that much better from the first God of War.
No, they're comparable.
Maybe I'm crazy.
Yeah.
But again, like God of War 2017 or whatever, 2018, still looks good as hell. Still runs good as hell. So it's like, do you really need anything that much better? You know, Baldur's Gate 3 looks good. It's not the best looking game, but we've had this conversation a billion times. Elden Ring, you get close up of characters and it's like they're made of plastic, but you're 10 feet away and it's the art direction that blows you away.
Yeah.
So it's like, So, and that's, yep. And again, why game budgets are expensive is complicated. It's not just because of the fidelity, but I think that's probably a portion of it. And I would rather have that cut away and figure out how to make games less expensive than games keep getting ridiculously expensive, unsustainably, and microtransactions and blah, 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 and cost-cutting measures to fire employees at random places to whatever, all that shit.
Yeah.
Okay, are we ready to move on to Unity here?
Let's do it.
Okay, Richard.
Mar Witten, Unity Create president, posted an open letter to the company's site Friday apologizing for how Unity rolled out the runtime fee. This was, as a reminder, this was the fee that charged 25 cents for every install on devices for Unity games. Is that correct?
It was something around
20
like
or
25 cents, yeah.
So there will be no runtime fee for Unity Personal, and Unity is raising the threshold for revenue in Unity Personal from 100K to 200K. And I think Unity Personal is the paid for.
No, Unity Personal is the free.
It's free one.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So as soon as you make 200,000, they start charging you, I think.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know if I'd have to look at it again. I don't know. Once that threshold is met, I don't know if you get charged a fee or if you can't make money off your game, you're forced to upgrade.
Yeah,
I think it may be you're forced to upgrade to the professional one, but anyway.
Well, for users with Unity Pro or Enterprise, the runtime fee will not go into effect until the next LTS update, which will release in 2024. So the fee won't apply to games out now or in development right now unless they are updated to that new update.
Yeah, and that's lifetime service. I forget what LTS stands for. It's the next update. It's
no game with less than $1 million in trailing 12-month revenue will be subject to the fee. For games subject to the runtime fee, the devs will be given the choice of either a 2.5% revenue share or the calculated amount based on the number of new people engaging with their game each month. Developers will be billed the lesser amount of the two.
Yeah, and something I watched he had an interview with a YouTuber who does a lot of Unity coverage in game development. And something that he was saying was that they had this idea, I think he said this, they had this idea to do this before the runtime fee, but in their minds, this would be the cheaper option than the 2.5% revenue share.
Mm-hmm.
So after the reaction to it, he was like, okay, we'll give you an option, even though we think the 2.5 is going to be more expensive for a lot of people. I don't know how sincere or honest that was, but that was part of the rationalization. the reaction seems to be generally positive for the update, although it seems like a lot of the developers I have seen, like gaining that trust back is going to be something
Very
that
difficult.
is difficult, if not impossible. But I can't speak for developers. Yeah,
Of course.
I don't know if you guys have seen any of the reaction or anything like that.
No, I have. The quick glances I took were not positive. They were. It was more or less just, well, no, you already burned the bridge, so sorry.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and the studio that makes what was it, Terraria, like donated 100,000 or something.
Yeah, to the other
engines.
game engines. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and maybe this is a good lesson that we need. I don't know. We don't think about engines that much as people that play games and cover games, but maybe the industry does need more options in that area. I don't know. We talk about how Valve's revenue share 70-30, is that good? Is that bad? Whatever. That's another thing that I have reservations about Valve. But like that same thing could apply to engines. It's like there's a couple big engines, and other than that,
I don't think about engines very often. I mean, of course, why would I? But man, the one engine that was that we won't see anything of, and I wish we would, is a Fox engine. So.
Oh, jeez.
Don't even get me started on that. However, I forgot the engine name for Horizon. That's a very good engine.
The Decimus?
Yeah, Decimus, yeah.
Because that's the same one that
Kojima uses for Death Stranding, but yeah, Horizon particularly. And Horizon is...
Decima, I think.
Yeah. I'm going to load up Horizon again.
It is extremely good looking. The Fox engine, did it die with Metal Gear Survive or whatever? That sucks so much, man, because that engine was just so... It was just so... Well, okay, I say engine, I'm generalizing. I was about to just start talking about how good Metal Gear Solid 5 was.
That's like the only game they used it technically.
Yeah, so it might as well be a review of the entire engine itself, I guess, because I have no idea what it's like working on it or on the back end or whatever. But the one major game it produced, MGS5, was just magnificent. Just so good in everything it did. It just felt so good to play and stuff like that. It's a shame that we're never gonna. Do we know what? Hold on. Do we know what the Metal Gear Delta is going to be made in?
Oh, I don't know.
And does Konami own that engine? Is that
yeah. Because they made it while he was under contract with them. So
okay. Huh. Maybe we'll need to dig into that more later. Maybe it's not dead. Maybe it's still alive somewhere. We'll see. Who knows? But yeah, I would like to speak. And then the RE engine, which is
RE engine's so good.
And I don't know if that's an engine on its own or if it's like a spinoff of another engine. Or
no, that's an engine on its own. I think it's an upgrade of the MT framework engine, which Capcom used all the time in the 360 PS3.
Goddamn.
Not only is that a good engine, but apparently it's like almost 1-to-1. Just this is VR now, and it's VR.
Really?
Yeah, because the same mod that the same mod that was created for Resident Evil 2 for the VR mod on the PC, the guy who made that said basically like, yeah, actually, it works pretty much for all the RE engine games. You just
interesting
because they did Resident Evil 3 in VR, and they did and they said they theoretically could do Monster Hunter Rise if they wanted to, but that would be pretty disorienting. I think
still some of the best. Resident Evil 8 had some of the best like creepiest visuals. I still get chills thinking about that basement scene where you're walking around and one of those like zombie figures.
Oh yeah, with the chainmail
walking out and it's like dragging the sword.
It's very cool.
Terrifying, absolutely terrifying. Very good. Okay, are we ready for tidbits?
Yep,
let's do it. What if I told you, in this world, there are bits and there are tids, and Richard is the only man who can put them together into tidbits.
Fox has also made eFootball PES 2021 season.
Oh yeah, let's go!
Yay!
Wow. Oh, it was used for PT.
Oh, it was.
Son of a bitch.
Hey, all right. Well, Hideki Kamiya is leaving Platinum Games. Late last night, the Platinum Games Twitter page posted an image statement saying that one of the founders, Hideki Kamiya, would be leaving the studio. Very soon after, Hideki posted himself posted on his own Twitter account saying, quote, as announced on the official Platinum Games X account, I will be leaving Platinum Games on October 12th, 2023. This came after a lot of consideration based on my own beliefs and was by no means an easy decision to make, end quote. Hideki Kamiya is responsible for games like Resident Evil 2, Bayonetta, Devil May Cry, Beautiful Joe, and Okami.
Platinum's had a hell of a year, haven't they? They've had a hell of a year. The whole Platinum makes Bayonetta, right?
Made Bayonetta 3, yeah.
Yeah, with the whole Helena Taylor thing going on.
Yeah, which, they kind of won that one.
Well, yeah.
But no, yeah, that sucks.
Of course,
They get a lot of freelance work to help with action games, and the last couple that they've done hasn't turned out very well. Babylon's Fall was one of them.
Oh, okay.
Square Enix and Platinum helped develop that together. And then the other one, they started up work with Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, but eventually they were, I'm not going to use the phrase booted off, but I think they just provided them the framework, and then Gung Ho, I forgot who's developing that. They're moving on with it.
No idea. Okay.
But yeah, anyways. So relating back to the Xbox story, over at TGS, someone asked Capcom that if they were to be approached to be acquired by anybody, what they would say. And Capcom, or at least the COO, Haruhiro Tsujimoto, says that it would gracefully decline any acquisition offer from Microsoft. And he said, I quote, I believe it would be better if we were equal partners. And that was from Bloomberg. So that's all I have on that one.
And if Capcom says no, you'd think Nintendo is definitely saying no.
Yeah. No, thank you. Devolver Digital has passed on several Game Pass-like deals. According to its latest financial results, Devolver Digital has had offers to put some of its titles on a Game Pass-style subscription service, not necessarily Game Pass, but other subscription-style services. Devolver turned these offers down as the company believed they undervalued the games. The report doesn't state whether it was indeed Game Pass, but it was some sort of subscription service. I don't know if it was GeForce Now or something. Some Devolver games, such as Serious Sam, Siberian Mayhem, are on Game Pass, and others, such as Cult of the Lamb and Carrion, are not, although Carrion was a Game Pass launch game.
Yeah, you would think, I don't know, I would speculate, and I guess be wrong, that sort of mid-tierist publishers like Devolver would be more open to that, but they must have a different thought process in it.
I think Devolver does very well for themselves. And sorry, I can't state this correctly. They do very well for themselves, but nobody knows it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like they're doing better than people think they're doing.
Yeah,
there it is.
Yeah, because it's like you always, I guess you just kind of forget about them in some sense, because every year there's a game that comes out that's like, oh, look at this crazy silly game, look at this crazy trailer, and it's a Devolver Digital published,
and it's always a banger. Like they've done Katana Zero, they've done Ape Out,
Pedro,
Enter the Gungeon,
Banana, whatever it's called.
That game wasn't that. I didn't like that game.
My friend Pedro,
Gumbrella just came out.
And then you're going to have Talos Principle 2, which is coming out this year, unless it was delayed, I don't know.
Oh, they're doing baby steps? Oh, Lord.
Yeah,
Talos Principle 2,
yeah, they've got good games.
They got a great repertoire. Enter the Gungeon. That's a good one. Anyways, the Square Enix's new CEO has laid out plans for the future. Takashi Kiryu replaced Yosuke Matsuda earlier this year as the Square Enix CEO. And just recently, Kiryu had a short Q&A during an earnings report at the beginning of August, where he confirmed that Final Fantasy XVI had met their expectations and surpassed it a little bit.
Whoa, okay.
But along with that, the questions began to ask specifically what Kiryu's plans were for the future of Square Enix. I'm not going to read the whole quote. I'm just going to read the bullet points. But basically, he would like to work primarily on HD games, which he seems to be the bigger focus. So they're going to look into their back catalog, probably do some HD versions of older games.
Well, when they say HD games, because doesn't HD mean something different to Square Enix?
I don't know.
Like, I thought it meant like a delineation, and maybe that is what it means.
Oh,
But
HD to me always meant high def.
Okay, I might be wrong. Maybe it's a different company because I remember reading HD once, and it was like as a way of separating that from like smaller scale mobile stuff or whatever. Maybe that's a different company. I'm sorry.
Oh, I don't know. They want to identify existing IPs that they have that should be upgraded to AAA status.
Interesting.
Okay. They want a greater portfolio depth, so more varied games, and they want to improve overall profitability of all segments. Of course, who doesn't? But I think that the first two, particularly, is a good start. Considering that the other CEO, Matsuda, wanted to really lean into NFTs, which are worthless now. So, I mean, they always were worthless, but now they're more than worthless. So.
Oh my god. I wonder if it's still in there somewhere. If there's still some dude somewhere in an office that's like, oh, don't worry, I've got the Square Enix NFT department on lock.
Which sucks because I wish Matsuda was replaced a bit earlier because I don't think Kiryu is a young guy and he grew up on video games apparently. Who doesn't, but they probably would have held on to Tomb Raider and Deus Ex and all those IPs.
You really think so?
I think so.
Interesting. Okay.
If Matsuda had if he was replaced earlier in the year, I think they would have.
Maybe they'll buy him back because Embracer just fire sale time for Embracer. Embracer's like, oh shit, we added way too much to this Titanic and now it's sinking from its own weight. Jesus Christ, offload women and children and studios we just purchased first. Is that your next tidbit?
That's all the tidbits.
I thought your next tidbit might be, and in other news, Embracer continues to lay off people
sucks.
and sell because Saudi Arabia pulled out of a $200 million or whatever. It was more than that. It was like $2 billion or something like that. Some massive deal.
But sorry, that speaking of NFTs, that article about how NFTs have all become vastly worthless. The day before, I rewatched the Folding Ideas Line Go Up video.
Danielson.
Oh yeah,
Danielson.
Beautiful.
Danielson's a Chad amongst Chad. A Chad amongst Chad.
If you haven't watched that video, watch that video. Yeah. It's 2 hours, so do it while working around the house, playing a game.
Yeah, I have a huge crush on Danielson. He's fantastic, but it's funny because one of the top comments in that video for a long time was, "I named my my 3090 Dan." Because you help stabilize the GPU market. Thank you. And it's like NFTs and cryptocurrency made so much suck. You had annoying commercials with Matt Damon. You had the computer GPU market completely crashing. Mm-hmm. You had to listen to like Elon Musk talk about bullshit. And all that's gone away, and it's just so much better. It's so much better now. You had like celebrities. Did you guys ever watch that Paris Hilton and Jimmy Fallon? And Jimmy Fallon's Jimmy Fallon's like, well, this ape has glasses on, and one time I put on glasses. It's just like me. It's like, okay, Jimmy, yeah, sure. Why don't you go ahead and yeah,
go back to bed.
It's still just stop abusing your employees.
Go back to having
Jimmy.
A toxic workspace.
Go back to or stop that, Jimmy. Stop that. Anyway, okay. Are we good?
We're good to go.
Yep. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook, Gaming Discourse, youtube.com/Gaming Discourse, patreon.com/Gaming Discourse. The YouTubes. It's all about the YouTube's Gaming Discourse FM on YouTube as well. And we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.